Career Center presents Alumni Talks, a series of episodes featuring success stories from our very own trailblazers sharing lessons and experiences to help you jumpstart your career. Tell your story, share your lessons, create your own future.
Our second guest for tonight is currently the Regional Director of National Economic Development Authority here in Region 10. Please help me welcome Director Mylah Faye Aurora Carino, CESO III. Hi, Ma'am Mylah. Kamusta po?
Hello, good evening and maayong gabi sa tanan nga tigpaminaw o tigsunod aning atong Alumni Talks program.
It is my pleasure to have you as our alumni guest tonight. Before we get to our chikahan for this evening, let's have some icebreakers. I heard you were a big fan of Kdrama.
I discovered Kdrama during the pandemic, but I don't really have too much time to watch Kdrama because of the heavy workload, and so I rely on my friends to curate the program that I should watch.
Let's try this game. We call this game Guess the Kdrama Title. Let's give it a try.
Sige, but I might fail. Sige, okay.
So this is how it works. We'll be flashing on the screen a combination of emojis, and these emojis represent a Kdrama title. You just have to guess what that is. Okay, tech team? May dalawang worlds.
Crash landing on you. Is that the one?
Let's see. Oh, two worlds.
Two worlds. Hindi ko kabaluan na. I have not seen that. I'm not really a K-drama expert.
How about this one po? May dalawang fairies.
Strong woman something. I have not seen this K-drama. As I've said, I only watch what is recommended. Strong, I don't know.
Something like that, strong.
Strong theory.
Keyword is strong. Let's see.
So, bagsak na gid po ani. Weightlifting theory. Okay. Kim Bok-shook. Okay. My doctor recommended this to me, but I have not yet seen this. What is this? Is this Dr. Mante? Descendants of the Sun? I've seen this. Song Hye Kyo and Song Joong Ki. Yeah, I have not really watched that many K-dramas. I think since the pandemic, I think I've only watched like maybe 7.
That's a good number.
So,
that's a big number.
2 years? 2 years? I don't think so. 2 years.
But they're series, right? So, okay na din po. Not just movie. Okay, so why don't we start our chikahan tonight by sharing with us the batch you graduated in high school and what was the name of the university back then?
I actually graduated from high school in 1988. And the school back then is known as Don Mariano Marcos Memorial Polytechnic State College.
What was your fondest memory here in the institution?
I think the time that we have our shops, at the time we call it shops, no? So food trades, industrial arts, fisheries, sewing, so garments. So those were some of my fondest memories. And I think another is the intramurals, because it's a state college-wide activity. And of course, walay klase. Mananaw og games, that's one. And then another, I think, is baha Pag mag-ulan, in baha, walay klase, but at the same time, after sa baha, manglipyo, manglimas,
Makeup class dayon.
class dayon.
Can you walk us through your, thank you for sharing, by the way. Can you walk us through your career experience from the time, from your first ever job experience up until your current position?
Oh, I'm actually a teacher, no? I graduated with a degree, Bachelor of Science in Physics for teachers as a DOST scholar. So I taught for 5 years. I taught physics and chemistry, and I taught for 5 years, as I've mentioned. And then somebody invited me to join government. Actually, one of the parents of my students invited me to join governments, and then the rest is history. So basically, that's it. So I started working for the local government unit of Misamis Oriental, and then I joined Popcom. Still, mura siya og mga invitations. So while I was in the LG of Misamis Oriental, I joined a national training, and I must have impressed someone there during the training because that person invited me to join Popcom in central office. So I joined Popcom in central office. While there, I handled a UNFPA project called PopDev Planning at the local level, where I got to work with NEDA regional directors from across the country. And again, I must have made a good impression on one of the directors because the director invited me to apply in NEDA Regional Office 7, which is based in Cebu. And I joined NEDA there. I spent 5 years in NEDA Regional Office Cebu. And then I was invited to join Popcom Regional Office 10. I applied and joined as head of the Technical Services Division. But while working in Popcom as head of Technical Services Division, in 2011, there was a Philippine Development Plan Caravan here in Region 10, and I was one of those asked to assist in the social sector related chapter. And my former bosses in NEDA saw me, and then they asked me if I would want to return to NEDA, and so I applied, and the position was Assistant Regional Director. I was able to return to NEDA, and I was assigned as Assistant Regional Director in NEDA Regional Office Caraga, where I stayed for 7 years. Now, after working as ARD from 2012 to 2013, I was promoted as Regional Director. And I transferred here in, reassigned here in Northern Mindanao in January of 2019.
Okay. Amazing. You have had so much on your plate, ma'am, and I was just amazed listening to you. That's all I can say for now. But I'd like to know if the course that you graduated in college was aligned, or was there any point that it is aligned to your current position now? Or at some point, if they are not aligned totally, maybe at some points you got something from your course in college with the position you're holding now.
As I've mentioned, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Physics for teachers. No? So, well, it's different from the work that I'm doing in NEDA. NEDA, as we all know, is National Economic and Development Authority. But my master's degree is in demography, which also deals with economics. But the rigorous training that I got in physics, including my background in math and science, has amply prepared me for the work that we do here in NEDA, and including training or discipline on critical thinking and logical thinking, which I badly need in NEDA. That has been ingrained in my training in physics. But critical thinking, critical analysis is something that we should all have as as a competency or as a capacity.
I agree.
Doesn't matter what field you're in or the kind of work that you do. Very important for us to have critical thinking, critical analysis.
I agree with that, totally. Like I mentioned earlier, you have had so much on your plate, and I was really amazed listening to you. You've been in the academe and then shifted to public service while being so active in different civic and professional organizations, while also, if I may add, garnering a lot of leadership recognition from innumerable partners and stakeholders. How to be you po? Is there any secret? Maybe some vitamins we could take in? Just kidding. How did you maneuver all these?
Very basic is giving your best all the time. Be it a small task or a big task. You have to give your best all the time because your work speaks for you.
True.
Your work is actually your own press release. No? So give your best all the time, anytime, small task or big task. Secondly, walk the proverbial extra mile. Now, giving your best also means giving more than what is expected.
Sure.
Of course, basic nang you have to meet the expectations of your stakeholders, but at the same time, it's not only meeting it, kasi meeting their expectations is to me just the minimum. Now, meeting the expectations is just the minimum. If it's a grade, it's just 75.
Right.
So you have to exceed their expectations to the point that you delight them. So that's why you have to walk the proverbial extra mile or mas maayo gani na extra miles. And then also aim for completed staff work. No, completed staff work means you've done the background work. You have, for example, if you're asked to write something, a policy analysis. You've done your research, not
Due
only related to the particular topic, but you've also researched on what were the past legislations or past issuances relating to that particular topic. I mean, meaning you have to know everything that has to be known about that particular aspect. So completed staff work. And I think the basic question to be asked, if you've done completed staff work, is this. If it's a paper that you've written, you should ask yourself, if I am the head of office, would I already sign this? Would I already approve this? If from your perspective, it's still not something that would merit the approval, then go back to the drawing board, so to speak.
Don't settle for less, in other words, right?
I mean, you owe it to yourself to give your best, but more importantly, you owe it to the client that you serve, the best service that you can give them.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Would like to know, what was the turning point in your career that made you decide to shift from academe to government? I know that you mentioned earlier that you were invited by one of the parents, was it, of your student. Was that the turning point, or was there something else that made you decide to shift your career?
I just like to make it clear that I actually love teaching. Teaching is actually very challenging, and teaching actually keeps you young because your students do not really get old. Like for example, if I taught high school physics, so the next year it would still be high school physics. So while ni-graduate na to sila, ang musulod nga mga estudyante, batanon magyapon. So they really keep you young, no? And of course, they can ask the darnest questions. And so you have to prepare yourself. So as a teacher, you always have to be on your toes. You have to be ahead of the game. So make no mistake, I love teaching. No, but I guess the turning point was that invitation from a parent. And actually that parent was also an alumnus of USDP. And he challenged me to join government, in particular to join LGU of Misamis Oriental. But I guess I'm also influenced by the examples of my parents. Both my father and my mother were public servants. and I saw how dedicated they were to their work, and I saw the impacts or the positive impacts or effects of their work, and so they were also my inspiration.
Thank you for sharing. What's your principle in maintaining work-life balance? Where do you stand on that?
Well, work-life balance is a daily challenge and a daily aspiration. There are days when you really spend more time at work than
Yes.
than at home. So technically speaking, there's really no balance. I mean, some days you can spend more time at home, but some days really work can just be very demanding. I think the challenge is integration, that you're able to integrate work in your personal life and personal life into your work life. And I think the challenge is also about the quality
True.
of time spent. Like when I'm home, I see to it that I'm really home.
Yes.
When I say I'm really home, is that my mind is not elsewhere, but my mind is at home with my children, the hubby, and my mom is staying with us. So my mind is at home. I think the challenge is mindfulness and being in the moment,
True.
being present. Because I think that's the challenge of our modern world. No? Too much multitasking.
True.
We can be doing so many things at the same time. But when we're at home, our loved ones deserve our presence,
True.
our actual presence. Because I always say, our presence counts more than our presents.
True.
The gifts that we give to them. And so because of the demand of work, sometimes I spend more time at work, but I see to it that when I'm at home, when I'm with them, when I take pocket vacations with them, I'm with them 100%.
I'm totally agreeing on you with you on that, because I'm also a mother of two, and especially for modern nanays like us, we are by nature multitasker. So even if we are at home and we know for a fact that we need to spend our time with our kids and with our family, but because we know there's something else to do at work, it's challenging. I agree with you when you said it's very challenging because you just can't help it. It's our nature. We want to excel at so many things, and we want to prove to everyone that we can do all things at best at the same time.
I think it's very important to share at least one meal with the family. In our case, it's usually dinner.
Dinner, yes.
No, because we have different schedules in the morning. So it's usually dinner. Very important for us to share a meal, and during mealtime, gadgets are off limits so that you can just enjoy each other's company.
True.
As my mother always tells me, no, values are caught, not taught. So it's during meal times that our children actually know what we hold dear or important in life. And it's during meal times when we share about work or about current events that our children learn from us, and at the same time we also learn from our children. So I think it's very important that we at least have one meal shared with our family.
True. I agree with you. We also do that. We also eat dinner together, not breakfast. My husband is not a morning person, and my kids, they wake up very late, especially during my pandemic. So we just eat together during dinner. And I agree with you when you said it's very important. High engagement or being over-engaged with your job can lead you to feel constant need to overwork and be involved with projects like what Mylah and I were discussing earlier. This leads to stressful situations and emotional exhaustion. While being highly engaged is a good thing, it can also lead to high job stress and burnout. Mylah, was there ever a time that you felt burned out at work? Or is it something that you think it's all in the mind?
I think it's very important that you love what you're doing. That's very basic for teaching. And now that I'm with NEDA, I love the work that we do here in NEDA, and even the work that we do in PopCom. No, very important that we love what we do. That's very basic, because talking from personal experience, because I love what I do, I find fulfillment in the work that I do, whether as a teacher or as a public servant in Popcom and in NEDA. And of course, I've already come to accept, no, embrace. I think this is very important. We should embrace the fact that there will be days when our work will demand so much from us.
Sure.
It's not every day naman, no, that work will demand so much from us, and so we just have to embrace that. And as a public servant, I always keep reminding myself that in the end, who do I serve? It's really our people, and our people are actually our employers. Now, yes, there are times when there's too much work, when there's too much on my plate, especially during the pandemic. Work here in NEDA evolved. More work came for all of us. But then in the end, klaro sa ako unsa akong priority, no? Unsa ang I know that the work that we do here, ang iyang impact dili lang sa amo, pero ang iyang impact sa atong katawhan. And I count myself very fortunate that during the pandemic, I have work. And that is work in the government. So siguro basic lang na, no. I think question good. Do you love what you're doing? I mean, that's a basic question that you should ask yourself. Do you love what you're doing? Do you find fulfillment in what you're doing? Do you wake up excited knowing that you're going to work? Kasi ang akong tambag ana, kung pagmata nimo sa buntag, nagluya ka na daan, kay murag di ka ganahan sa imong trabaho, then maybe it's time for you to consider another work or another agency or another office. Okay, kung dili ka excited nga mo trabaho, you do not look forward to going to the office or to USTP or wherever that is that you're working. I'm definitely certain that your productivity would dip.
True. And in turn, you would always feel that you're stressed, right? Because you're not really happy with what you're doing.
Yes. Very basic yun nang nalipay ka sa imong trabaho, you find fulfillment in what you're doing. Not only fulfillment, but you also find meaning in what you're doing.
If I may borrow from someone, I forgot the name, but I've read it somewhere where he says, find a job that you love and you won't have to work a day in your life. So it's something that you have shared to us earlier, that if you really love what you're doing, you find meaning and you find purpose. And maybe you feel tired, stressed sometimes, but not really every day, because not every day that our work would demand, something. Demand more than what is from the usual.
I think it's also a matter of attitude or perspective. Kasi kung pirmi ka maghuna-huna o problema o kalisod, that's going to be the perspective that you're going to take for the rest of the day. No, but as I've said, if you think that the challenges are there to make your life more meaningful, and then you embrace it, I think it makes the work a bit easier.
I think also if your work is demanding more from you from the usual, I think it's also an avenue for you to grow. Personal and career development as well, right? Because if you're just stuck in doing something that you've been doing every day, there's no opportunity for you to grow and to get better.
Oh, well, yeah, and then of course you can always innovate, you can always improve the way you do things. I always tell my staff that yes, while the machine is running well, we should not be complacent. We should always look for opportunities to further improve the way we do things. Now we can take a look at the process. We can take a look at how we engage our stakeholders, because there's always room for improvement, and any opportunity for innovation should be grabbed, because it's not only good for us, but it's also good for our stakeholders. Yes, it's important that we work hard, true, but I think it's also more important to be smart in doing our work. Because when we're smarter, we expend less energy and less time in doing our work.
I agree. Work smarter, not harder. Would you agree that one possible cause of burnout is extremes of activity? By extremes of activity, I mean when the job is monotonous or chaotic. Did this ever happen to you?
To me, there is no boring work. I mean, it's really a matter of perspective and attitude, no? Our perspective, our attitude towards work. As I've mentioned, you can always innovate, no, and you can always improve on the way you do things. I don't find work boring, although at times the work is kind of routine because sometimes I have to read voluminous materials, no, in the work that I do, but in reading I learn many things, and it's one thing that I would also want to impress, especially on my children, that we shouldn't stop learning. We should aim to learn something new every day, because you know what, knowledge piles up every day. There are new knowledge discovered, there's new information, and if we don't strive to learn, musamot kadaghan ang atong wala nahibalaan, di ba? So, and maybe I think it's also good, no, sa isa ka opisina that you rotate people, so that people don't grow into their own comfort zones. It's good to rattle sometimes. So, for example, it's also good because daghan ka og skills ka matun-an. Like for example, in the office, pwede man good nga mag-rotate for maybe 1 or 2 years mo nimong assignment nga division, then the next division dito na pud ka, then the next division, because you acquire skills, you learn the nuances of your job. If you rotate, no, mupod na siya nga sa NEDA, among regional directors, we don't stay in one region. No, we are rotated. Although painful man ang movements, no, painful man ang transitions, painful man ang reassignment, but it's necessary for growth. It's necessary for growth because if you get transferred, then you meet new people, you learn new perspectives, and you are challenged to give your best in that kind of context, no, of a new assignment. So I think it's a matter of attitude and perspective as well. So una man good, mingon good akong daddy, only boring people get bored. I mean, you can always find something new or exciting bisan pag nagbalik-balik na ang imong trabaho. Like for example, for teaching, no? The challenge was dapat, because I taught, that's just one example, no? I taught physics sa Xavier, so I handled the honors class, and then 3 general section physics, and then I handled two sections of chemistry. I always see to it that I don't give the same example gani, because students can always compare, sabi ingon ni ma'am sa imo dinhi ana, and I want to keep them guessing, I suppose. So I always try to give different examples, and then during exams I prepare 3 separate sets para di magkinopyahay ABC, bisan pag-asa siya maglingi-lingi dihi sila pareha og exam. So lisod siya sa pag-check, dili pod sayon ang pag-prepare, but I think that's important. It makes the learning process more profound, I guess.
True. And on your part as a teacher, it also makes your work very dynamic at some point because it's not routine anymore. You keep on, thinking of something else that would excite you and the students as well. Ma'am Mylah, maybe not clinically, but professionally speaking, what wisdom or tips can you share to someone while on the verge of job burnout? I know that you mentioned earlier about attitude and perspective. Apart from those, any other tips that you can share to our live viewers for tonight?
One really is always aim for self-improvement. It's not only because you want promotion, but it's also a form of self-actualization and self-fulfillment. Aim for self-improvement. I mean, you can do that by going back to school
Mm-hmm.
or attend trainings not only for professional improvement but as well as personal improvement. Engage in activities outside new hobby, and if you want to be good at it. And, also, of course, have a life outside of work. Have a set of friends that you can really rely on. Your circle of friends does not have to be a very big circle. It can be small, but these are friends who will stick with you through thick and thin. So I guess that's it. Aim for self-improvement, because as my mother used to say, when you actually improve, you build on what you have, you're actually preparing yourself to accept more blessings. I think very important is to have a prayer life. I think that's one thing that I'm not saying that I'm religious or overly religious, but very important to have a prayer life, and always also to have a reflection moment.
True.
I think it's very important, like every evening before going to sleep, if we can just go through what happened throughout the day and check the moments where we were not our best self, and probably reflect on that, and because it's really possible, especially in my kind of work, that what I say, what I do impacts not only on myself and my family, but it also impacts on other people. That's why really very important for us to be mindful all the time. Mindful and deliberate. Deliberate in words, deliberate in our actions. Because everything has a ripple effect.
True.
Or a repercussion. What you say, what you do, and even what you do not say and what you do not do, they have ripple effects. So very important, mindfulness, great deliberation, and then kindness and compassion. And I think it's also important to take a break from work from time to time. That's why it's very important for us to take vacations. Vacations do not have to be long vacations. They can be pocket vacations. It can just be an afternoon of break, a day of break, or a weekend of break with family. That's very important, so that you're able to collect yourself. And I think it's also very important to attend retreats from time to time. And kanang training bitaw nga dili ng webinar nga nag-webinar lagi ka karon pero naa ka sa work or abri diha ang kuan. Kuna importante nga, as I've said, that when you attend something, you are 100% present. So kana siguro vacations, take a break, take vacations, and it can be a training. A vacation can be a training as well. Kana siguro, and then have a prayer life.
I like what you said when you mentioned earlier that it's important to take or to reflect on a daily basis, because I think the most important conversation that you can have in a day is the conversation with yourself, because that's the time that you can assess your actions, your decisions in life, and that would determine whether you've done good or you need to get better or something like that. And also on when you mentioned earlier about taking vacations, they don't have to be fancy, something that would take you off your mind from work. And also when you mentioned earlier about maybe joining webinars, trainings, I think if I could add on that, I think it's also better I think it's also good if a person can take or join webinars or trainings out of their interests, not really because of utilitarian purposes, like they just go there because they were required, out of interest.
I agree.
Mylah, last question. How did USTP prepare you for the world of work? Back in high school, was there any values?
Yeah, you know what? Mayon tag nabalik ni sa USTP, katong sa high school nga curriculum, where aside from aside from academic na program, naami practical, very important no for us to have what we call life skills. And I learned many of life's skills in USTP in Don Mariano. Like for example, sa first year namo no gi-rotate gud ni ana every quarter. Kaya murag taas ang among klase. We start at 7:30 and then we end I think at 5 p.m. When I was teaching in Xavier, ang klase sa mga bata ends at 3. So kami sa Don Mariano up to 5 kay naa man goy shop. Pero din hamang good sa shop kay you learn many things. No, you learn how to interact with your classmates, you learn how to work as a team. Kinaman mo yung mga group projects, then you have individual projects and you learn to innovate, you learn to substitute because some of the things that you would require are not readily available, no? So I remember metalworks, industrial education, industrial arts, we have cooking, we have sewing, no? And then katunang pag third year nanay major, so I majored in food trade. So they would teach you like food preservation, cake decoration. And I remembered nga katong sa high school pa mi, ang among junior seniors from kung junior ka na naa ka sa food trades, kamo ang magluto para sa tibuok. So I mean, you would learn ka ng pag-budget, kana ing ana no, kana man good. That's what I like about my education sa USTP na high school. Because it was holistic.
True. And
it made well-rounded individuals from among its graduates. Really. So I missed that and I was telling them na sana mabalik siya no kay kana man good when you teach children life skills na kabalo sila magluto, kabalo sila mag-ayo sa ilang mga sakyanan, kabalo sila mag-ayom-ayom, mag-troubleshoot anang mga equipment that would serve them well because that served me well.
True.
And I thank Don Mariano for that. Truly grateful and industry even drawing na aday mi drawing so kana it's something that I don't really like when I was in high school katong drawing but it served me well no paka-draw kag perspective I mean hindi siya mawala.
Tinood. I think when you mentioned earlier about life skills, we can also think that when they were teaching you in high school about life skills, you were also getting something, not just life skills, but also other type of skills that would be beneficial for you or maybe for anyone who took their high school in Don Mariano before in their career. Like life skills can be compared to maybe let's say if not analytical, they would get critical thinking skills out of that. And when you mentioned about drawing kanina, not really drawing, but out of that activity, maybe they got their creativity skills got into play at those times. That's about it, mga ka-trailblazers. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things about job burnout and what to look for and how to improve your relationship with work, and of course, about employment in general. Ma'am Mylah, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It is such an honor to have you on Alumni Talks, and it was such a pleasure talking to you. I had so much fun, and I learned so many things from you. I am pretty sure our live viewers too.
Thank you as well for the invitation. Anything for my alma mater.
Thank you po. Thank you everyone who tuned in with us this evening, to our dear alumni trailblazers, to the students and faculty who tuned in with us as well, and most especially to our alumni guests for tonight, Ms. Mylah and Sir Bong, to the whole Career Center team, and to everyone who made this evening session successful. This has been your host, Grace Raha, and it was such a lovely chikahan with you guys. Join us again next time for another episode of Alumni Talks, your success stories, our legacy. Good night! please help me welcome Dr. Gina Rani Marquez, Mr. Thor Torecha.
It is scary for a lot of people, but it's just a matter of showing up and still believing in yourself.
If a person thinks that the work defines him or her, should that person then be defined by just one thing when you can actually be more than that?
The world of business is very crazy. There's always someone better than you, richer than you, more prepared than you.
Don't be afraid of being different.